This is the place for intellectual, spiritual, and scriptural honesty. And my wife and I, we are excited to have George Bunn here tonight. And it's just awesome to see you, George.
It's good to see you too. Both of y'all.
I announced that this show was going to be about something that would probably make me tear up quite a bit. And I'm probably jumping to a serious note quickly, but you lived with us.
Correct.
And we got to know each other quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And this was right after, it was several months after you got out of prison.
Correct.
And I want the audience to understand that you served maybe 20 years plus in prison, correct?
Pretty close to it, yeah.
So can you tell me just a little bit about what life is like in prison? And Joey didn't do that microphone right. It looks like it's just drooping, and so that's how inefficient we are around here. Yeah.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's crew member doing that.
Crew member.
Crew member?
That's what Matt and Joey say.
Okay.
But I want you to tell us about what it was like. First of all, I don't want you to go into a long ordeal. I simply want you to give me an idea of what it feels like, first of all, to go to prison.
Terrifying, initially. Certainly humiliating. And just your initial reaction would be just total shock. You're in a state of shock because you are entering a world that you have zero knowledge of, other than the horror stories that you hear, which most are just that. They're just stories. They're not based on reality. They're far too kind with their generalities for the reality of what takes place in there.
When you went to prison, when you walked in those doors, were you treated with respect? That is, did they respect you as a human being? Did they treat you like a human being?
No. That is not on the agenda when you are incarcerated. Being degraded is probably a very kind word for what they treat you like when you first arrive, and then subsequently as the days pass.
Now, we met, my wife and I think that we were at the Victory House, if I'm not mistaken. And that is actually where we met, and we met you there because the owner of the Victory House had come to the studio to watch one of our shows. He had watched it actually on television, I believe.
Right, and to give the audience an idea of what the Victory House is, some people call them halfway houses. And sure. I'm not sure if that's a good depiction, but it's a term people know and respond to, but it's more of the next step after prison. A lot of people go to a intermediate place before they can branch out on their own and be more independent, and that's where we did meet George. He was actually like the house manager.
Right. Yeah, that's a good. I mean, it's a term that everybody's familiar with, halfway house, because when you first get out of prison, then it's a very strenuous adjustment. It's just like going in. It's no different, coming out than it is going in. You've been, your life has changed so much from being in there that returning to what people consider to be, a civilized state is just as much a stark contrast as it is, leaving this and entering. So something of that nature is needed, severely needed. There are tons more people that need, a transition point from out, from in to out than is available. Just because of that, it's just such a shock, psychologically.
So what you're saying is when you're stepping out of prison, it's such a shock that just to go right into the community is just not possible.
That'd be catastrophic.
It's catastrophic.
Oh, absolutely. 72 hours maybe, a week if you're lucky. And you would be on your way back already.
My goodness.
It's just that stark of a contrast. I mean, it's just, it's impossible.
What do you mean
Impossible.
you're going to be right back within 72 hours to a week? What does that mean? Do people come out saying, I can't stand this, I just want to go back to prison? Is that what's happening, or what?
No, I mean, it is, the environment is so different. Your modus operandi for survival in there is so different, and it just does not apply, on the outside at all, in any way, shape, or form. Your heightened aggressiveness, your super intense self-preservation, that you have. If someone were to bump into you, then you would react in a very inappropriate way in society as opposed to what would be acceptable while you were incarcerated. Those types of situations would put you on the bus back within 72 hours tops.
So
It just can't do it. It'd be impossible.
it's almost like, for whatever reason you go in there for, when you come out, do you think there is such a thing as rehabilitation from prison? Or are you, I don't want to say are you worse, but were you worse? I'm not saying you were bad when you went there, because not everybody that goes to prison is bad.
No, certainly not.
And so, but do you think that you benefited at all from being incarcerated? And if you did, what were the benefits? And then tell us the non-benefits.
It's complicated a little bit because there's so many facets to it. There's so many interlocking folds to being incarcerated that in some circumstances, yes, I've benefited, but I benefited by choice. I chose to not let this destroy me, not let this, turn me into what it was trying to turn me into. I chose to take the circumstances and the events and use them for my betterment instead of what they were intended for, which was just total annihilation. But that has to be a very conscious choice. The average person, absolutely not. You're 10 times worse than when you come out than when you go in. Very, very few people come out of there improving themselves rather than going the opposite course. And there again, it takes help. It takes assistance for that to take place when you get out, because there are so many adjustments you have to make to function in society again, to participate as a human being, because that's what they try to take from you is, your humanity. They try to turn you into just a non-thinking, reactive beast, for lack of a better word. You are just denied even the concept of being, a civilized human being. The lack of humanity is just, it's awesome, on a scale that, unless you go there or unless you, experience it you have no frame of reference. So, you know, as hard as I would try to explain it to you, you have no point to reference the data from, and so it will only penetrate so far.
Right, I understand that. You know, you when you came out and you came to the Victory House, which is a halfway house rehabilitation place for men. When you left prison, did you feel any kind of a calling, or did you have something in your mind to say, you know what, I want to really help other people in my shoes, you know, when I do finally get out? Or did it just happen by osmosis? I mean, it just happened.
No, that's actually that's what I wanted to achieve. You know, when I got out, I saw so many people just eaten alive by this thing, incarceration. You know, I've seen so many people just totally destroyed, and I've seen people that had no business being in there in the first place just get chewed up by this thing. You know, that when I decided that I wasn't going to allow that to happen to me, you know, that I just simply was not going to allow it. You know, I would die first, which was the choice. I mean, it took that type of commitment, you know, for me to say, you know what, I'd rather just die. But at that point, from watching so many people come and go and watching so many people get, you know, just destroyed, and not just them, but, you know, their families and their friends, and they have kids, they have wives, you know, so it just, you know, it ripples on down the line that I really, truly, and still do. I just don't know how. But there needs to be a way to save these people from themselves and from what they are having to endure. And so that's the reason that I was the house manager there at the Victory House. When we met, that was my goal, was to, you know, turn this place into what is so desperately needed, and that is a place of truth and honesty, a place of integrity, you know, a place of research, you know, a place of trying to figure out what's really going on, you know, what's really happening here. For God's sakes, you know, people are being destroyed, and we're doing it to ourselves. I mean, we're doing it to each other. So that was kind of my aspiration, even though it's gone, you know, unfulfilled so far. Maybe one day, not me, then hopefully someone else. We'll take a look at this, you know, and be honest about what they see, which is what I find most people don't want. They don't want to know the truth, you know. They don't. They'd rather turn a blind eye to it, not just concerning others, but themselves as well. You know, they don't really want to know the truth, because with the truth comes a certain amount of responsibility. You know,
Exactly.
If you're an adult and you understand what the truth is, then you inherit some responsibility, and that's what most people shy away from. Sad, but that's what I see.
When we started going to the Victory House, we were asked to go there and start teaching. And my wife and I, you know, being around all these wonderful people, they felt so bad about themselves. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people would simply come up to me and feel as if they were not even human beings. And when I told them how great they were and told them how valuable they were, and just the simplicity of love, they really connected with that, it seemed. And my wife and I loved it. In fact, we started, you know, taking our band over there and doing music, and the guys, you know, they like rock and roll, and so the band did rock and roll and various other kinds of music, and I had a good time, and we even took food over there. And the guys love to eat, and
Oh, no question.
But you know, one of the things that I would like to talk about is the uniqueness of you,
Right.
because you were different, because
Right.
we found, we just did not work with that particular halfway house. We've worked with various, and we have not found everyone to be so honest.
Well,
And-
let's just be honest right now. We've housed or had people live with us, let's say 5 or 6 from jail or prison. And George, to me, you're the only one that has shined. I mean, that really had a grip on who they wanted to be and what they wanted to do in life. And to me, I would say a success story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why are you so different?
Yeah, why did you succeed and everybody else
And everybody else
lost?
failed. I mean, because we kind of took it upon ourselves. Like, I mean, we're failures. We thought we could help people, and
Right.
but George is a different breed. I mean, George. I mean, it sounds like I mean, he worked every day. He was responsible. He had bought vehicles, and he did. He just. And George is different.
Right. I think it goes back to some of the things that you were talking about earlier, and that is being in prison. You made a choice, and it was what you did for yourself that gave you some benefits, as opposed to what other people were doing, and possibly they could not do that. Something positive for themselves. And I want to talk about that tonight, but I want to go back to this halfway house concept. I think that Jesus, I don't think that he looks at what we call sin as sin. I think that he looks at sin like a physician looks at sickness.
I agree.
And there's nothing better than having a physician who has a good bedside manner. If you have a physician who cares about you and can diagnose you properly, everything can change and everything can get better. But unfortunately, when we became aware of what was going on, that is, in these halfway houses, I was shocked. I mean, I thought they were places where, we need to send our money, and these places are doing lots and lots of good. And the bottom line is, it's rare to find a halfway house that's doing anybody any good. In fact, these things are upside down. And the one that we went to, it was only good while you were the manager, because
Right.
when you left there,
Right.
the other guy who stepped in, that place became, if you wanted to buy drugs, you could go there, or, you're just driving down the road 30 or 40 miles an hour and they're out soliciting you. I mean, it was that bad, and still is.
Still is, that's right.
I mean, you are making a huge difference in these guys' lives, and these guys are counting on you. And I don't think that most of the viewers understand some of the things that we went through that I would like to talk about, if you're willing, when you came to live with us. And this is even after you had been the house manager for a while. I remember Thanksgiving. And instead of you coming directly to the table, you wanted to stay in the other room.
True.
Yeah, the very first Thanksgiving.
I remember at Christmas, when family came around, you just stood to the side and were out of the way. And we had a lot of talks about that, because you didn't feel like you could melt in. That was difficult.
Yeah, extremely.
And could you describe that for us? What makes it so hard for people who have been in prison, who have been in this institutional style living, why is it so hard to melt in, and what can we do to help that to be easier for people? Because, I simply thought it was just opening up your door and saying, come on in, let me love you, tell you I love you, and here's the food, and let's have Christmas, and let's have Thanksgiving. It isn't that simple.
No.
And I have found that we've learned more from all of the prisoners than what we have given to them. And I'm not, sometimes I'm convinced that Jesus was telling us to go feed those people who had no water and who had no food because they could teach us something. And maybe he wanted me to visit people in prison so they could teach me something, because there's something about this entire experience that I treasure. I've learned so much, and I thank you for that. But I want you to educate us. Please do so. How can we help those people in prison? Those people who have been beaten down, treated as if they're not human beings. And then when they get out and they go through the halfway houses, and most of them are very deceptive, how can people change this entire environment? How can that change, George?
Whew. Daunting quest right there. Well, I guess the biggest challenge, or the challenge becomes progressively more difficult as the system has its way with that individual. The longer someone is incarcerated, then the more challenging it is to get them back on, the right road, or even being able to recognize, what's right or what's truth or what's wrong, because you are just the human psyche is just so beaten down while you are in there. I mean, you are constantly, that word is just, it fails at how often and how severe and how crushing it is. The experience of taking away your sense of self-worth, your sense of humanity. I mean, you don't feel like you are worthy or capable of anything good at the end of that experience. I mean, they make it a point, to drive it in at every available opportunity while you're here, that you're not worthy of anything, that we should just work you until you just drop, and then when you can get up, we should just work you some more, and you're still not going to be worth crap, that you still should just be, not even bother with the burial, just throw you in the damn ditch and let your corpse rot, and maybe you'll spend the rest of your life in hell, and even then you're not going to be, anywhere near worthy of being called a human being again, and it's just 365 days of constant beratement, to that effect. They put you in situations where you have to fight for food, just like, putting two dogs with one bowl in the middle. After, starving them for a day or two, then you know what the outcome's going to be. And you do that, repetitively, for years and years. Turn the water off, for 2 or 3 days. For viewers that have never been in that situation, there's not a separate section for the bathroom. It's in the same room that you are. And so, if they turn the water off for 3 days, then you live in that and with that.
So all these stories about, they're just, laying around on our taxpayers' dime and watching TV and eating the best and doing, that's not true.
That's just a politic that wants to get elected. That's all that is. The political aspect of this, which is, the grassroots, which is really where these things need to begin. If true change, permanent change is going to take into effect, then truth has to be put out there, that all of this is just, political crap to get elected, You know, I'm going to save your tax dollars by doing, you know, X, Y, and Z. And you know what? It's just a rationalization to get into office so I can live the life that I want to live. You know, the person that stole the banjo over there that's going to spend the next 10 years in prison, you know, to hell with him. He's, you know, I don't know him. I've never seen him, don't know his family, don't care anything about it. Hell, they're probably on welfare anyway. You know, let me get in as whatever elected official I'm going for, and I'll change all this. You know, I'll improve your life. I'll sweep crime off the street. Well, you know what? That's lies, just bullshit. But we're a long, long ways from addressing that issue in this country. But as a smaller micro of the macro, if you will, you know, on a community level, which is where true change, in my opinion, you know, needs to start is at places like halfway houses and things of that nature. That the deception needs to be, the curtain needs to be pulled back, you know, and let's take the lid off of these things and see what's really going on in there and see if people are really being assisted or aided, you know, in becoming, you know, productive members of society, because there's certainly a large portion of them that are capable of this. They just do not have the resources to accomplish it. It doesn't do any good to tell a man to get a job if he lives 40 miles from town.
Sure.
You know, he can't get there. You know, we've lost our sense of unity with each other. I mean, we've lost our sense of connection, you know, that what affects you affects me, affects them. You know, we've somewhere along the lines, we've forgotten that we're all human beings, you know, and that, you know, we are inherently loved equally, you know, by God, regardless of who we are
That's
or
right.
where we're from.
That's right.
And I don't know how we got to where we are, but it's not just sad, but it's frightening that we don't communicate anymore. We don't talk anymore. We don't care about each other anymore. All we're doing is condemning each other. Everybody's looking to shut the other guy down or to belittle the other person, rather than, you know, taking each other by the hand and standing up together. Until we, you know, realize this, then we're just a continuation of the farce that's going on now. Halfway houses, you know, or just communities at large, need to recognize that that's a valuable human being, and him or her, you know, they are a child of God just like I am, and just like you are, and just like everybody else is, regardless of whether you believe it or not. It doesn't matter, you know. It doesn't matter whether I think the sun's going to rise in the morning, because it is, regardless. And there are certain, you know, inherent values inside of all of us. And the sad part about it is that they can be buried. You know, that we can push them so far down that we can't access them anymore. And that's what prison, you know, is really good at. You know, it will just hammer you and 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 condition you and condition you and condition you, that when they open the door and say, here's $50, get on that bus, have a nice life, that they know what they're sentencing you to. It's no different than the judge signing the order for you to spend, you know, 6 years in prison. It's absolutely no difference. Same thing. I know that within 6 months, I'll be seeing your name again on the manifest. Well, so-and-so's back already. How about I told you it wasn't worth the damn to start with? Here he comes again. You know, and it's pitiful.
Well, do you think some people deserve to go to prison?
Tough question. Yeah. I mean, I do. Now, I don't think everybody should be swept together in the same little hodgepodge, because you know, there are differences. I mean, you take someone that you know, maims other people, and somebody that wrote a bad check. They don't need to be in the same cell. You know, they don't need to be locked in the same room together.
Sure. Just
for your entertainment purposes. You know, and unfortunately that happens.
That happens.
Yes, quite a lot.
So you're saying that happens?
Yes. I mean, more often than people realize, because there again, people don't want to know this stuff. They don't want to hear about it. You know, the only people that are concerned with this are the parents and wives and kids of those people that are actually in there. And I mean, people don't realize just how closed that system is. I mean, you can ask any, you know, your average person on the street a question about incarceration, and they don't know anything other than what they've read in, you know, like the newspaper, or they hear on the news, which again is just propaganda. It's just, you know, politics. They're going to dress it up and make it smell good, even though it's not true. But you are at the complete and total mercy of the people that run that institution. Once you get on the other side of that wall, you're on another planet. You can talk about all the human rights and civil rights you want to until you're blue in the face, but they do not apply. And it's a nice topic out here in the civilized world, and it sounds good and it feels good, but it just ain't true. It's just plain and simple. They do whatever the hell they want, when they want to, how they want to. The world be damned, because you know what? You'll never know about it. If they don't want you to know, you won't know. If I want to lock you in a box over here and keep you there for 2 weeks, you won't know about it. And you know what? How do you think a letter that an inmate writes gets out of there? It ain't magic. It goes through their hands before it ever reaches the postman. And you can say what you want to. Things get lost all the time. Phone calls get denied. All they got to do is say, so-and-so did X, Y, Z, and I'm sorry, but his visitation has been taken away from him for a month, and that means you can't see him. I don't care what you do or who you call, you can't see him, and that's all you'll know. And that person may be in a broom closet, for, you know, just lack of another term. And so when you treat a human being like that, and you do that to him often enough and long enough, how can it be a surprise to anyone that the recidivism rate is what it is? I mean, my God, what do you expect him to act like, him or her, when they get out of there?
Right.
I mean, the conditioning has, you know, its desired effect. It's no different with any of us, you know, with any human being.
Excuse me for a moment. I need to get someone to get me something to drink. Take the ice out of this. I just need regular water. I've had some throat problems, and so I haven't been able to push, that is, vocally much, and so I've been very quiet in a sense. Maybe that's good news. But I would like to say that when he gets back with the water, I think I can speak. I don't think I can speak until then. You're going to have to carry the conversation.
You know, to just kind of expand a little bit on your, you know, what can be done question. You know, compassion is kind of it in a nutshell. You know, first, you can't treat an illness if you don't recognize what that illness is. You know, and that's one of the biggest flaws that we have, is when you take a person and they come out of prison, you are unaware of the fact of just how manipulated that person is, just how uncomfortable that person is. It's just like when we were talking about the first Thanksgiving and the first Christmas. You know, I couldn't function in a group in a room full of people. I didn't trust myself. I was, you know.
What do you mean you didn't trust yourself?
I didn't trust myself to act appropriately. You know, not to react to the conditioning, even though, you know, I was, you know, dead set against that or fighting it. You know, then my inclination was, you know, behaviors that are unacceptable. You know, acts of aggression that are just not tolerated, you know, in society. And so when you take a person that's coming out of prison and they wind up in a halfway house, or they wind up in someone's home who is, you know, kind enough to offer them a place to live, that person is ignorant to what they're dealing with. And so they don't respond or recognize to respond in an appropriate manner.
Right.
You know, when that person starts acting out, or that person is, you know, when you offer that person something, you know, you get a very different reaction from somebody offering you something in prison than you do somebody out here in society. And so, you know, you make that person extremely, I mean, just extremely uncomfortable by offering them something, because every alert in their body goes up due to the conditioning of you know, what takes place in prison under those circumstances. And that's why, you know, festivals of eating or sharing food and sharing drink and
Right.
parties and things of that nature, that's why that person is so uncomfortable. And they may not even be conscious of it. You know, it takes a heightened sense of self-awareness. You know, you've got to pay attention to what is going on within you, you know, each and every moment, to recognize, you know, the conditioning that's taken, you know, that's been applied. You know, you have to keep challenging yourself on, you know, no, this is not a threatening situation. It's no reason for me to be uncomfortable. You know, well, then why am I so uncomfortable? You know, it's like now, tonight, you know, I'm not real comfortable sitting here talking about this. Outside of the two of you, I don't think I've ever talked to anyone about this. So that makes me, you know, slightly uncomfortable, but that's, you know, normal. It's okay to be uncomfortable. But, you know, the misapplication of that is it's not okay for me to be uncomfortable at Thanksgiving around people that simply want to share, you know, company and conversation and food and Thanksgiving, you know, to observe and, you know, pay a little homage to things that have benefited them to their, you know, throughout the course of the year or their life or whatever, you know. I'm certainly thankful for you two, you know, more than I could ever express. You know, the friendship and the kindness, the love that you guys have shown me is just awesome. I mean, it's amazing. And it's probably one of the greatest things in my life, to be, you know, kind of blunt about it. And I'm thankful for the Victory House. You know, the experience there, it's educated me. You know, if I had the resources, you know, and the help, I would love to expand on that. You know, I would like to show people that it can be done, that it can be achieved. It just takes a willingness to do so, just like it takes a willingness not to be destroyed by prison or other influences, not just prison, but, you know, there are influences in our everyday affairs that will destroy you just as fast as you know, any institution will. And all of it just boils down to a lack of the knowledge of God's love. That's all it boils down to. You know, without love, you fail at everything. You just miss the boat altogether. And that's pretty much what we're doing, is we're just missing the boat altogether. Because with love comes truth, and with truth, honesty, and honesty, you know, responsibility. And we need people to be willing to challenge themselves, you know, step up to the plate for this thing, for God's sake. Step up to the plate for your kids and your children and your fellow human being, because you share the same planet, you live on the same block, you shop at the same store,
Sure.
for God's sakes. And you wonder why you're getting robbed in the parking lot. You know, you complain about it, but you don't want to do anything about it. You know, you don't even want to know why.
Right.
You know, why did this guy snatch my pocketbook? Or why did this guy, you know, rob me when I came out of the drugstore? You know, you don't ask those questions. And if you do, you don't really want to know the answer. Because if you knew the answer, then you would recognize the fact that part of the responsibility is yours. You know, part of the responsibility is mine. You know, we share the responsibility here. We share, you know, all of our drinking water comes from the same spot. You know, all of our food comes from the same garden.
We used to have some late night talks. And they would normally wind up just both of us just crying.
Yeah, no doubt. Hard thing for me to do.
One in particular, I remember, and it was you telling me about how they put you in the hole. And you were describing, first of all, that night you were describing what they did to you when you were incarcerated. I think they shackled you with one hand high and to the leg, and you were in that position for I don't know how many hours, just naked, and treated very much like a shackled animal. And then you described various things that were going on that, you know, we'll probably not get into on the show.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah. But we went on to just talk about a time in which you spent, what was it, 364?
Yeah, 364 days.
364 days in the hole. What is the hole? What does that mean?
The hole is, most people get it confused with segregation or isolation, but those are completely different. The hole is a place where they put you. You have about, I don't know, maybe 7 feet in length and maybe 4 or 5 feet wide. And you have a floor, and there's a little section of the wall that comes out that you can lay down on. And then you have a toilet right there, and that's it. There's no ambient light. There's no artificial light. It's dark. There's no sound other than, you know, the occasional sound at the steel door, because it's a heavy steel concrete door, like a safe, I guess would be a good description of it. It would be like sticking somebody in a safe and shutting the door. You lose, you know, all concept of time, all concept of space. You know, you lose all concept of just about everything after a while. I had no idea how long I was in there until I came out. I mean, that just escapes. You know, there's no day, there's no night, there's no moon, there's no sun, there's no light that you turn on because it's dark in there. There's no thermostat you turn up because it's cold, or air conditioner that you turn on because it's hot. None of those things exist. You know, initially, you can keep track of you know, whether it's morning, noon, or night by the meals, if you want to call them that come through there for you to survive on. But even after, you know, X amount of time, I don't know, but you lose that altogether as well. You just don't know anything. It was hard. It was.
That doesn't sound like a correctional institution. It sounds like a torture chamber.
Well, I think that's my point. You know, the Department of Corrections is not correcting anything. It's not a correctional facility. It's a chamber of horrors. I mean, it's a place where mean-ass people can go to act out on their aggression and not be held accountable or have consequences. Is what it boils down to.
Well, I mean, did you do something bad to get in the hole? Or you don't have to say, but, I mean, why would one be placed in the hole?
Self-preservation. My self-preservation. So, anyway, I don't really want to go into any detail. It's certainly not something that
by the hand.
Certainly not something that I'm proud of. It's just something that with circumstances dictated I do something that I really wished I hadn't, you know. But anyway, it wound up with me being in there for 364 days, and the only thing I'm thankful of out of that whole situation, you know, other than what, you know, I did, you know, internally, is the fact that the operator of that facility kept his word when he said, well, I'm putting you in the hole, and the day that you come out, you will be leaving this compound. And he kept his word. 364 days later, when they opened the door, they put me on the bus to another institution, and for that I'm thankful. But it was just hard.
When you came out of the hole, I mean, what was that like? I mean, how did you relate to, you know, even the institution? I mean, it's difficult coming out of an institution, but out of the hole, I mean, tell us what that was like.
That was really strange. I've never really thought about verbalizing it, or describing what it's like, other than it was just, I mean, it's really strange. Everything is heightened, your hearing is heightened because whether you realize it or not, you're trying to hear something, because you miss.
You're desperate for some
anything.
kind of contact.
Right. I mean, because you miss everything. You miss eye contact. You miss seeing people, even the casual handshake or the tactile stuff that we experience all day, every day, you miss those things. And so, when the doors open and light hits you, at first it hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, your eyes they ache. I have to do this. I can't really, have to start adjusting how much light is even, allowed to hit my eyes because they make them ache. It's weird because you're grateful, but at the same time you're still mad as hell. You know what I mean? Because you kept me in there. And that's one of the things that people either ignore or fail to realize is you have a person that coming out of the penitentiary has one hell of a lot of rage that's packed away in there for all of the brutality and the mistreatments, the things that he's been denied, that right or wrong, he feels like he should not have been denied certain things, and he has been, and so he has all of this pent up anxiety and rage that he has to process somehow. It has, sooner or later, it's got to come out. And the unfortunate thing is it generally comes out in a negative expression.
So in a sense, when someone is let out of prison, all that resentment, all of that hostility, all that anxiety, it comes out on
us, or the community.
Right.
Sure.
And then we say, oh, that guy did something wrong because he was pinned up and all of this repression took place. And so a guy is in the pen, he has to repress everything and can't deal with anything. There isn't any adequate counseling. There's
good God.
It's not even.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but the word counseling just. I mean, because they do tout that.
Yeah, I know that they advertise counseling. They even advertise church, and that brings me to our other discussion that we've had. We've had many discussions about what goes on in church and why do people go to church. Please tell us, George.
Okay,
go for it.
You mean church in prison?
Church in prison. I'm
Yeah.
speaking strictly from to my personal experiences concerning all of this. I want to make that perfectly clear. But the church in an institution is just simply it's a place where homosexuals go to participate in homosexual activity, when they have been separated for not being able to control themselves in different sections of the prison. It's a joke. I mean, no serious person, participates, unfortunately, participates, in institutional prisons. It's either a scam to get out. I mean, and again, it's sad because it really shouldn't be that way, but I mean, it's used for everything except its designed purpose. It's used by people that want to get out early, so that they can continue with whatever criminal activity that they were participating in before. They know the fastest route out of any institution is through the religious context. You know, if I can get in there and I can be, you know, a dog and pony show man, and I can get the pastor to write, you know, a letter of recommendation to the parole board, or, you know, to the warden and you know, everybody else, excuse me, yada, 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 then I can get the hell out of here. You know, and not concerned with the Bible, not concerned with religion, not concerned with God. I'm concerned with getting my happy ass out of here and back on the streets. I have things to do. And unfortunately, that's, you know, a viable option. I mean, it's a venue, and it's a fast one. It's a fast track out of there.
Well, my question is, what is the leader, the teacher, the pastor, the chaplain doing while people are engaging in these activities during the Sunday school lesson?
He's not doing anything.
He just ignores it?
Yeah. I mean, it's most of them that come to those types of places and those institutions, you know, they're not really, they don't care.
No.
They don't care.
Not really.
You know, they're just there to put a feather in their own cap. It's more snake oil salesman than anything else. You know, it's a you know, political thing. You know, self-gratifying instead of you know, actually being here to try to help somebody or benefit somebody. Then I'm here to kind of blow my own horn, and I can go back out on the streets and say, you know, yeah, I do this and yeah, I do that, and you know, God used me for this and God used me for that, and you know, it's no wonder people are so turned off by you know, quote unquote modern religion. It's no different than talking to a used car salesman. I mean, you know he's lying.
Sure.
You know, I mean,
Well,
you know he's full of
I don't want to say that for all used car salesmen.
Oh, no.
I don't want to make a broad statement.
Yeah,
when I said sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there aren't, you know, legitimate and concerned people out there, because there certainly are, but they are few and far between. The vast majority is you know, I'm talking about the problem side of this issue, you know, and the things that need to be addressed, and the things that need to be looked at, and the things that need to be corrected. But they won't be corrected, and they can't be corrected if people don't know. And then once people know, then they have to care, you know, because all of this takes work. I mean, it's still a struggle for me today. You know, every day I have to question myself and challenge myself, you know, to decide, you know, why do I feel like I do? Why do I think like I do? You know, is this the right thing to do? Or why did I react that way to this situation, you know, when I could have handled it so differently? You know, it's still a struggle.
So you have baggage still from being incarcerated?
Yeah, no question. I mean, I still struggle with crowds, you know, and I still struggle with, you know, even today I can't ask anybody for anything. It's just the hardest thing in the world, you know. And it makes me laugh at myself, because you know what? I'll help just about anybody.
I know.
You know, I know. Just if you need a hand, I'll give you a hand. No problem. But you know what? For the life of me, I can't do it. I can't say I need a hand.
Yeah, that's true. I know that about you.
I need help. I can't. You know, it's one of the biggest things that, you know, internally that maybe, you know, I hope to overcome. But yes, by and large, I definitely still have baggage. You know, I've still got issues that I have to work on. I still have a lot of you know, of inappropriate, or not inappropriate, but kind of inaccurate or flawed feelings in situations that just don't apply, but they're there nonetheless. You know?
What gave you the reason to trust us so much? Because you have divulged so much to us over the years. Ever since we got to know you, you just gravitated toward us and us toward you. And it's been a wonderful relationship. But I guess my question is, you really like what I teach.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's about truth and honesty. I mean, it's about integrity. It's about responsibility. You know, it's about the things that separate human beings from the rest of the life on this planet. I mean, it's about a sense of unity. Over the course of the years, I've learned, not always the easy way, but I've learned to trust what I feel, what I sense, more so than what I can rationalize or intellectualize or even tactile stuff. It's just how I really feel on the inside. And from the moment that I met y'all, all of y'all, at the Victory House when y'all first started coming down there, I mean, it was truly awesome. And it just, I think it's the inherent sense that I have that you too, and of course this organization here are seeking what it is that I seek, which is truth, which is honesty, which is reality, for the betterment of everybody, not for some self-seeking, self-serving purpose, but for all of us to have a better life, for all of us to be just a little bit happier, One of the things that I set out to do every day when I leave the house is make somebody smile that doesn't look like they want to.
Right.
And that's it. That's all. Sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. But you know what? If I go to work and I walk in there and you look like you're having a bad day, I'm going to see if I can't make it a little bit better.
You have an expression that you used to use a lot, and it was "Go God Go."
Yep.
And when you said that, it would energize us because, the marvelous love that he has, and that's what I attributed it to. That love just keeps on going and going and going. It'll never run out. It doesn't put on brakes when it gets to a person that we think is unlovely. God just gives it. And so when you say "Go God Go," sometimes you would even write it and hold it up. When Dr. Jones would be teaching. It's awesome.
Now, I've got to read some of these texts. One of these texts that I was receiving while I was somewhat choking a while ago because I've had a difficult time speaking.
Okay.
And everybody's been so patient with me. But Joey walked outside of this studio, and everybody else is here,
right.
And we can't hear anything on the outside of the studio, and he locked himself out. And so he's texting me trying to get back in.
Excuse me.
And so I was, but I think that Joey just was embarrassing himself, and I didn't want to interrupt what you were saying because it was so powerful. You came in during our last show, Bob Graves, the unconventional pastor, and I could tell that you were enjoying his show. Because he is so incredibly honest, and he actually sent some messages, and one of the messages is Bob Graves says, "George has a heart of gold." I mean, that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And he also agreed with me when I said it's not a correctional institution; it is torture, it's abuse.
It is.
And, I mean, many people can see this. Monica, read this. I can't see very well tonight.
Monica says, if you haven't had the pleasure of meeting George, he is someone who has a genuine love for people. And then we do want to put this out here because, George made a statement based on his experiences. And that's all we can do, people, is we can only speak about our own experiences.
Right.
And he said that the people that you ran in contact with, the chaplains and whatever, you felt that they were there to just, put a feather in their own cap, or, say, I do this, or even say, what Jesus said, if they're in prison, go visit them. And so just chalk it off and like they did something. But we have William T. Langle Jr. He said, I was a chaplain, and I would say this doesn't describe me or the reasons I went to prison. as a chaplain, and I'm
Well,
sure
good
that's
for you.
true.
Yeah, good for you.
Good for you, William,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
That it is.
That's right.
I applaud you for
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
But in
Because you're an anomaly.
George's experience, you know, that's
Right.
your reality.
Yes, yes. I'm simply speaking on, I mean, I can't speak on anything that I haven't experienced. You know, I don't have the right to do that. You know, and certainly don't, please don't misunderstand what my purpose is here. I'm just simply trying to share my personal experience with you, whoever you are. And I'm not saying that all institutions are like that, or all, you know, chaplains that participate in this are like that. I would certainly hope that they're not, because if they are, then that means I'm alone, and that's not a very good feeling. I mean, I want, my purpose is, or my hope is, for people like us to recognize the problem, and confront the problem and correct the problem.
Right.
You know, for us that are seeking to improve, you know, the human condition as a whole, you know, to unite, you know, to connect, and start working together as a unit, rather than turning, you know, a blind eye and a deaf ear to this problem that's in every neighborhood, you know, probably in this country. You know, America has so many prisons, and it's, you know, it's amazing. You know, we're supposed to be so smart, yet we certainly don't act like it in some situations. You know, we ignore the obvious, you know, that they're not tearing prisons down, they're building more of them.
Sure.
You know, well, that in itself reflects a problem. If the Department of Corrections was doing its job, then we should be, you know, losing prisons. You know, we should be gaining more citizens, you know, that are contributing to society as a whole, as opposed to going the other direction. And you know, and just in my personal opinion, you know, the part of it is just, you know, apathy. That you know, what, we get busy, and
That's right.
and you know what, it's not my problem.
Just let somebody
and-
else deal with it.
Right.
Oh, that was my
Pass it
next-
on down the line.
My next
Well,
question is, as
can
far
I-
as
can-
recidivism.
Let me make a statement concerning this, and then I want you to get to that question. William, the one that made this statement, that he was a chaplain, and he went to prison to do ministry. This guy is a friend of ours on Facebook, and he has
Cool.
such a compassionate heart. And we have various friends who are not just chaplains, but actually guards in prisons, who have this heart of sharing unconditional love
Well, that's what we need more of right
with
there.
people. And so there are some wonderful
Oh, yeah.
guards, there are some wonderful chaplains out there. Unfortunately, you had some that weren't so good.
No.
And so go ahead and ask your question.
I was going to ask George, in your opinion, as far as recidivism goes, do you think that out of two choices, and I'm sure there are more, but out of these two choices, why the rate is so high? Is it because inside things aren't being dealt with properly, or do you think it's because outside, once they leave, things aren't being dealt with properly?
Wow, I mean, it's actually both. I mean, one, you know, kind of leads to the other. Neither issue is being handled correctly, in my opinion. You know, one of the things that I looked at, because you have to realize that in some of these situations, there's two guards that make $22,000 a year that are trying to raise a family, and they're trying to live a life, you know, and do the right thing. And these two people that don't have a criminal record, you know, that don't participate in, you know, criminal activity, that probably don't understand a lot of it, you know, are placed in a room with 75 convicted felons. And now they're locked in there with them, because you can't leave the door open. You know, most prisons do lock the doors. And so you have these two guys, and there's 75 of these cats out here and they're bunks. They're sleeping on top of each other, and they're in rows that go down the length of the building. And then there's one in the middle, and there'll be another one over there. And you have 75 of these guys that some of them are some of the most cunning and devious and smart, because you can't be cunning and devious and be stupid. Now, you may do some stupid things, but you've come up with a very cunning and a very smart way to do it. And you put all those people and pool them in a building for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then you take these two guys and lock the door on them and give them a chair against that wall right there and say, keep eye on these fellas, would you? What do you think is going on in there? You know, he can't see but so far down, and even if I do, I ain't walking down through there to tell them people to put that deck of cards up. You know, I'm not walking down through there to tell them to put that joint out.
Right.
You know, maybe they'll pass out when they get through smoking it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's two less we got to worry about. You know, put the ball game on. Maybe they'll watch television. I mean, this is what's taking place in the Department of Corrections, the places that I was at.
I had an
You know,
officer.
So, what kind of correction did you expect, you know, when you house people that way?
I had a correctional officer years ago who told me, he said, Dr. Jones, he said, we don't control the inside, they do.
Oh, and he's right. I mean, it's not worth getting stabbed over. You know, when you have a wife and kids at home, you know, and you come in to do your 12-hour shift, I don't care what's going on. You know, if they're going to fight over there, you think I'm going to get in it? You know, I got a wife and kids out here. I make $22,000 a year for this crap. I'm not getting stabbed over them guys right there. Or, you know, I'm not getting hit in the head with a D-cell battery that's inside of a sock, you know, because those two guys are fighting. You know what? When they get tired and they fall out, then we'll go over there and put handcuffs on them. Excuse me. I mean, that's what's, I mean, you can't expect, you know, but so much to take place, you know. If that guy back there is in the back is screaming, well, you know what, I really can't tell what's going on back there. Give it a minute, you know.
Wow.
I mean, come on, you know. Or you know, if you got 15 guys that break out in a brawl, all you're going to do is back out the door and lock it.
Sure.
You know, you're not going to. And you know what? When it's over with, you're not going to do anything to them. What can you do with them? They're already in prison, and they'll tell you that. What you going to do? I'm already locked up. You know, or walk down here when the lights go out. That's what you do. I'll catch your ass next time. You know, you can't expect, you know, change of any positive kind to take place in that setting. You know, drugs are prevalent, alcohol. I mean, everything in there that, you know, contributes to them getting there in the first place is readily accessible.
So do you think that the prisoners should be in smaller, manageable groups?
Well, I mean,
would that help?
Oh, sure. I mean, you're going to have to. It's no different than a classroom. I mean, you take a classroom with 50 students in it and one teacher. Sure. Look what happens. You take that same teacher and put her in a room, you know, with 12 or 13 or 14 students, and look at the difference in what, you know, the learning capacity or her teaching capacity is in those arenas. I mean, it's not rocket science. I'm not a very smart fellow, and I figured this stuff out. I mean, surely there's people out there that are smarter than I am, you know, that see this. It's obvious. I mean, it should be apparent to us all. I mean, those are. I mean, they're a fellow human being, whether you like it or not. And you know what? When he gets out of prison, he's going to move in with his aunt that lives 2 houses down. Now, you got to share the streets with him. You got to share the daylight, and you got to share the night with him.
That is true.
And then, you know, the only thing you do is turn your nose up at him when he goes by, but you expect him to treat you with respect and dignity when you don't afford him the same courtesy. I mean, he needs it more than you do. I mean, you're the one that's supposed to be, you know, compassionate and understanding. You're supposed to be smart. He's supposed to be the stupid idiot, you know, but.
So basically what you're saying is when you do the math and you look at all these people incarcerated and they're going to get out, and they're going to be living next door to you.
That's right.
And there really is no, statistics that demonstrate that there is truly correction going on, and something positive, or the prison system would be getting smaller and smaller. And so we've got a problem on our hands.
Big one.
And but I'm confident that things can change, and I'm not confident that we can change it from the top. But
I don't think so.
I'm confident that we can start dealing with those people who are on the bottom. And that's why my wife and I have such a heart for people who are on the bottom. Because if we can make a difference, that is, in people's lives who have been through this, not with the politicians, but with those people
Right.
who actually are on the bottom or considered on the bottom of society, I think that those people will rise up and they will do something with a lot of dignity, something that they lost, something that they desire, and they might do what we all need: stand up, rise up, and demonstrate to us all what it means to love people unconditionally. And, one of the things that we're about is unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, not keeping a record of wrongs. And that sounds very simple, but it isn't, because when it comes to record keeping, when people get out of prison after they've served all of their time, if you think that they can go out and get a job and just go on and have a happy life, that doesn't happen normally.
No.
That's not the rule.
Not even close.
And so these guys wind up begging to get hired, normally can't get hired, normally go through these halfway house systems. They're selling candy on the side of the road or handing out some kind of newspaper. They can't afford to pay a light bill, a water bill, for a telephone, actually to pay rent or buy a house. No one trusts them. And so it's not like they paid their dues and everything is all right. When they get out, they're not treated that way. And so tell us, in your opinion, how can things change? What do we need to do?
Well, we need to, first we need to recognize, what their needs are, which are exactly what you just said. They need to recognize, because you know what, they desire the same things that we do. I mean, they recognize the fact that, that the affection and the love and the human contact has been stripped away from them, and it's been denied them, for X amount of time. Inherently inside them, they know this, and they long for it. They just don't know how to get back to it. I mean, they don't know how to navigate through all the baggage that's in the way for them to achieve it, and then when they do try, they ultimately fail, and then, this adds to the frustration and aggravation, and you do this, repetitively over and over and over, and you get frustrated to the point where you just throw your hands up in the air, and it's all over, it's game over. They need to be given opportunities, to become self-sufficient again, because they want to be self-sufficient. Nobody wants to be, kept, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
I mean, they all want, responsibility. They all want, a job. They want, the self-empowerment that comes with that. They want that little bit of social dignity that comes with the fact that I'm self-sufficient. That I'm an adult. I'm a human being again. I'm a person finally. They want the same things all of us want, that everyone wants, and that everyone wants for their children. They desire the same thing. They just don't know how to get back to it. And unfortunately, the resources aren't there. The people aren't there. Because when I say resource, I mean people. It's not money. It's not buildings. It's people. That's the resource that's missing. That's the resource that's needed. It's people that care. But, you know, both sides of this thing have to be educated. I mean, you know, the people that care have to recognize the fact, you know, of how damaged this person is. And you know what? That this person's going to fail. And he ain't going to fail once. And he ain't going to fail twice. But he's going to fail, you know, a number of times. And that's where, you know, understanding and compassion and education comes in. You know, that's where, you know, your understanding of this supersedes that person. You know, this is where you get a chance to shine.
Right.
Because you get to be the one to pick this cat up and say, look, man, it's okay. You know, that's all right, man. You know, you know, I failed. You know, I did the same thing you did, man. You know, and I'm okay today. You know, it's okay to cry. You know, and it's okay to be mad. You know, it's not okay to tear somebody's head off. You can be mad at them without doing that. You know, I've done it. I know. I've been mad before, and he's still got his head. You know, as a matter of fact, I like him today. You know, I mean, these things have to be spelled out in detail to these people because they don't get it. You know, that they've been damaged to the point that they don't think like that anymore. They just react physically and negatively. You know, the people need to recognize the fact that, you know, the man wants to feel like a person again. He wants to feel whole again. And when I say he, I'm certainly not negating, you know, any women. It's just I wasn't in a women's prison.
Right.
But you know, I'm sure it applies regardless of gender. You know, they want to feel like a human being again. You know, and the constant, you know, beratement and belittlement is not helping. You know, and you know, you turning your back on that person doesn't help either. You know, the best way to overcome a fear is to confront the fear. You know what? If you're scared of this person, then why don't you get to know this person? It might not be so damn scary if you get to know them a little bit.
That's well put.
You know, but if you always close the door, you know, then you're going to be scared of them forever. You know, and then they're going to resent the fact that you're scared of them, and you know, the situation just snowballs to where it does nobody any good, you or them.
So at the end of the day, regardless if you've been in prison or not, we're really all the same.
Of course we are.
We all want the same things. We all need the same things.
Sure.
But I was going to let you know, Daryl Furlow, he sent in a text that said, "It's good to see you again, George," and showing some support.
Thank you.
And William made another comment.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I need to put my readers on and I can see it.
I guess so, honey. William Langold Jr. says, "Big prisons maximizes the money made by those that run the system."
No question. Yeah, I mean, he's right on point.
Let me read this last one.
I mean,
Put on my readers,
politics.
I can see now.
It's money.
Now listen to this.
Control.
A few minutes ago when Joey locked himself out, he said, "It's not funny, guys. I was really scared out there."
I don't guess Joey would do well in prison then.
No.
Joey wouldn't survive in prison.
Well, Joey wouldn't be the same when he came out.
Well, George, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Recently in the news, a member of Charlie Manson's gang was up for parole, and he was recommended for parole after 40 years, I think, and I could be getting it
Poor guy.
all mixed up. So after 40 years of being incarcerated, he has been recommended for parole. He admitted that he took part in the killing of, or, you know, was around the killing of 2 people.
Right.
While he was in prison, he got a master's degree, a doctor's of, I'm going to say philosophy, don't hold me to it.
Probably humanities.
Found God, of course. I'm not
God
making light of
found
that, but found God.
Okay.
And, you know, he wants to do the right thing and minister to people when he gets out. How effective do you think this gentleman will be? This is your opinion, just based on what you know.
I don't know. Can I answer that question after I get a restroom break?
Sure,
Thank you.
absolutely. All right.
Pardon me for a minute, y'all.
No problem.
If you have some more questions tonight, we'd like to entertain those questions. We just have a few minutes left. The text number is 850-572-7441. We're having a wonderful conversation with George Bunn, who's incarcerated for better than 20 years in prison. And he has shared some wonderful things, honey. And we have had some wonderful times with George over the last few years with him, and it's been awesome, watching him grow, watching him evolve into a much better person, just given a handful of opportunities, just given a chance to breathe in a sense. And George is doing wonderful. And I would like to see people given chances. And I'm not talking about chances just, okay, let me give you a chance. I'm talking about people given chances with the right kind of information. Because information is everything in this kind of context.
It really is. And another thing, I would think most people know somebody that is either in prison, in jail. There aren't many degrees of separation between you and somebody that you could possibly know that is in prison. And I have a cousin in Virginia that's in prison for, 10 years. He was some part of some kind of burglary ring or whatever, but we went to Virginia. It's not funny, but you know what I'm saying. It's not funny, but we went to see him, and it will break your heart. It will break your heart. And so really the main thing I would say is let's try to help people before they get to prison.
Sure.
Wouldn't you think that would be number one?
Oh, yes.
And then once
absolutely.
they're there, help them in prison. Once they get out, help them out of prison. And so.
Yeah, definitely. We need kind of Jesus's compassion all the way across the board.
Sure.
Before, during, after, the whole thing. And that's, to me, in a nutshell, that's all it boils down to is the success stories that come out of there, and the people that thrive and survive in there. It's in a word, it's love that accomplishes it. Nothing short of that works. Nothing even comes close to giving you the internal fortitude required to meet the challenges of that. If it's just your inherent, because everybody has an inherent knowledge or an inherent sense of love inside them. God has just done an awesome job with equipping all of us. It's just that we've lost the ability to recognize it, or we've never had anybody help us find out what it is.
Or somebody has said you're not worthy,
right.
You're not good enough.
Deprived you of it.
God's disappointed
Yeah.
because you did this.
Oh,
He's going to
goodness.
send you to hell. When you hear all that,
Oh, yeah.
Then you say, well, what the hey? I'm just going to go and do
Well,
whatever.
Yeah. Well, if I'm unworthy and I'm going to hell anyway, then what the hell? I may as well do it. I may as well go crazy and be wild and nuts, because according to everybody out here, I'm going there anyhow, no matter what I do. And it's sad, but that's true. That's the point, is everybody needs to be educated in the truth and reality of who and what God is.
That's right.
Not some fairy tale, mysticism, ooh, unattainable, nobody can talk to him, and you're going to melt if he sees you,
Right.
kind of the fairy tale stuff that you hear, today. It's no different than the boogeyman. Unfortunately, God's been turned into the boogeyman.
Right.
And that's truly appalling. That's truly sad. If we want to be mad about something, that's what we should get mad about. Not that this person, made a mistake, it's just a lack of knowledge
Right.
of God's love and his acceptance of you.
Unconditional acceptance.
Right, that empowers you to meet these challenges. You know, in my opinion, that's why he said, you know, I've given you everything you need. You don't need anything else. I've already given it to you. And it's not something that you have to jump through a hoop for. That's not what he said. He said, I gave it to you. Everything you need, you already got it. Go, boy, go. You know, just like I said, go, God, go. You know, he did. And it's our turn, you know. Let's shine for a while. And all it takes, even though it's not easy, please don't think that it is. I mean, loving somebody, you know, really loving somebody, and you know, the word unconditional, whew, wow, that's a tall ladder, unconditional. But you know what, to try to apply that, you know, in your daily affairs, that's where it's at. You know, that's where, to me, that's where the reward is, for just lack of a better word, because that's what makes me feel so good. That's why I wake up feeling good in the morning. That's why when I go to bed at night, I got a smile on my face, because I know God loves me, you know, and I ain't a lost cause.
That's right.
You know, none of us are. Nobody is. Unfortunately, some people don't want you to recognize this. Some people don't want you to know that. But you know what? Those of us that do know it, it's our job to tell those people that don't know it that it is so. You know, that God loves you just like he loves me. He didn't give me anything he didn't give you, you know. So let's stand up, you know, let's step up to the plate. Let's make something happen here. You know, let's make something good happen. You know, let's take this thing, you know, to a new level. You know, let's shine a little bit. God gave it to us for that reason, you know, to employ it, not to bury it.
So if the message for these prison chaplains or people that would go visit people incarcerated would be, you know what, you're important to God, you're worthy.
You're daggone right you are.
You know, he made you that way. It didn't matter, you know, what you did, or it doesn't matter what you do. He still loves you the same.
Sure.
If we have a different message to people, I think people will respond differently.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I said. You know, it's one of the things that I admire about you two is that you are truly about the truth. You know, I mean, that's, you know, that's, I mean, you're the first two people I've met, the only two people I've known, you know, so far. Hopefully I meet a lot more, you know, that are about this, genuinely about the truth, that there is no hoopla, there is no song and dance, there is no pony show. You know, it is what it is. God is it. You know, God is love. And when you boil it down to the lowest common denominator, that's what you wind up with. And so when, you know, when you get to internalize the fact that God is love, then you know what? It just, it evaporates all of the stuff that's not true, because it makes it clear, because that's not love. You know, and if it ain't love, it ain't God. You know, God doesn't condemn. He ain't going to condemn you. He'll help you back up. You know what I mean? He'll show you what to do and how to do it. But people don't know it, because they, you know, they keep hearing that he won't and he ain't. And that's sad, you know. For us to be human beings, to let the situation get to the dire point that it is today, that is sad.
It is. You know. I want to say that this has been a wonderful show with you. It's probably been good that I can't talk. You've done a wonderful job, and honey, you've asked awesome questions and made marvelous comments. Can't brag about her enough. I love her so much. George, I want you to come back because I don't want to quit. I see so many people suffering. I see families who have loved ones in prison. I see people getting out of prison, trying to find their way forward. I see people facing prison. We get calls all the time from people in prison. And there's something about that I think that we as people who actually have this authentic experience with God, knowing that he loves us unconditionally and accepts us unconditionally, we need to see some change that is in other people. And I think it's going to come about by just sharing the goodness of God, his love, his his awesomeness.
Mhm.
And I think when people get to know about a Father who actually loves you, who will never leave you nor forsake you, one who you can't be separated from, one who is there all the time, one who never looks at you as a sinner, but looks at you as one who does make mistakes and has problems, but one who says, I'm your physician, I will heal you, I will love you. And that's what they need. That's what we
Agreed.
all need. And I thank you so much for coming into our lives and teaching us so much.
My
I
pleasure.
feel like I've received the best of education from you.
Oh, and by the way, you're invited for Thanksgiving. So.
Yeah, yeah. And Christmas,
Thank you.
okay? And
As usual.
I hope that you
I'll be
find
here.
someone in your life that is, who has been in prison, and you invite them into your household simply to have Thanksgiving, Christmas, or some kind of holiday experience with them. Learn how to share the love that is in you with them. It's an experience. It's not quick. It's not easy. It's complicated. But George, you're worth every minute and every bit of money a person can spend. You're good enough for God. And you're certainly good enough for us. We love you so much. Thank you for being with us.
Love you guys too.
Love you so
you,
much.
George.
Thank you guys for your time tonight. Give us a call sometime. We want to hear from you. We are approachable. We answer phones. We talk to people, and we're never going to become these celebrities. We don't want that. We just want to love people and let people know how good God is. And get a hold of Bob Graves. Tell him how wonderful a show that was. And also Greg Bray. And also Daryl and Stephen did a wonderful job this afternoon. And also William.
Yes.
My goodness, that man can roll with the love of God.
Yes, he
he does
can.
all this in Spanish.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
you should hear William. His name is William Caicedo Torres, if I enunciated it properly.
I think so.
And then we have...
Don't forget the
yeah,
T-boggers.
Yeah, T-bog team. Yeah, Joey and Joey and Matthew. I tell you what, they have a
They are
show.
funny.
And we do thank crew member. He almost killed himself a while ago. The television almost came down on his head, and so we started late. And so we're going to cast the devil out of him in a few minutes. Thank you guys for your time. Good night.
All right.